The three-story penthouse was dead silent. No voices, no music. Only the glow from Chicago's streetlights painted cold streaks across the glass walls. Beneath Julian Croft's bare feet, the marble floor felt like ice. He stood still, gazing down at Millennium Park as if it were a different world, full of laughter, movement, and life. Up here, there was only emptiness. Behind him, a polished ebony desk was buried in paperwork. But only one page held his gaze, a report from Marcus Thorne, VP of Operations. The handwriting was stiff, precise: restructure lower-tier staff. Optimize with AI. Eliminate all non-essential human elements. Julian clenched the paper, his knuckles turning white. In his mind, he heard the beeping, beep, beep, slowing down. A memory rose like a cold tide: the sterile hospital room, the sharp smell of antiseptic, and the weak grip of Sam, his 8-year-old son, just before the monitor flatlined. "Dad, build something. Good, okay?" That final sentence had been a dagger to his heart every time the word success came up. For 15 years, Julian had built Aura Burger into a multi-million-dollar empire. Gourmet burgers, $25 apiece. Soft golden lighting, gentle jazz. Every detail was crafted by his own hands. But now, reading line after line of that report, he realized he had forgotten the promise. This company, it wasn't good anymore. It was a machine designed to maximize profit, no different from the insurance companies that once denied his son coverage. He walked through a living room as vast as a hotel lobby, his footsteps echoing. $1 million paintings lined the walls, but not a single photo of Sam. The penthouse was as grand as a throne, but to him it felt like a gilded cage. A glass throne, tall, beautiful, and so fragile that one punch could shatter it. He turned back to the desk and picked up the phone, dialed the internal line. His voice was low, dry, but firm. "Call security. I need a new identity. Papers, bank account, driver's license. Everything. My name will be Alex." The moment he hung up, it felt like someone had squeezed his chest. But for the first time in years, he could actually feel himself breathe. "It's time," he whispered, "to find that promise again." 2 days later, Alex, a middle-aged man with messy silver hair, thick glasses, and a wrinkled delivery uniform, walked into the Aura Burger store on Michigan Avenue. The scent of truffle oil and Wagyu beef still lingered, but it couldn't mask the tension in the air. No one spoke. The employees moved like shadows. Their eyes never met. The service smiles had vanished. All that remained were rigid, precise motions. The beep of card swipes, the sizzle of grills, the shuffle of feet, and a silence that weighed heavily. Julian now. Alex stood at the end of the line. He watched. His eyes paused on a young woman with her hair hastily tied up, secretly slipping an energy bar into the pocket of an older, trembling co-worker. She glanced over her shoulder, afraid someone might catch her. Name tag, Izzy. Across the counter, a man knelt to scrub the floor. His posture was strong, shoulders broad, movements steady. No one had asked him to. It wasn't his shift, but he cleaned anyway. Name tag, Leo. His eyes were calm, deep, and tired. There was something in them that made Julian stop. They weren't the eyes of just another worker. They were the eyes of someone who had known loss. When it was his turn, Julian stepped up to the counter. The cashier, a young man, didn't look up. No greeting, no welcome to the Aura experience. Just a mechanical glance and the beep of the POS machine. Julian read out his order, but the boy didn't respond. The whole exchange felt like dealing with a vending machine. As Julian left, Leo handed him the food bag. He gave a small, honest smile, fleeting but real. "Take care, man." Leo said, his voice warm and genuine. Julian got into his car. He didn't start the engine, just sat there staring through the windshield at the store. No one smiled, no one spoke. This had once been the flagship location, his pride and joy. He had picked every brick, every light fixture himself. Now it was an empty shell. He wondered, what have I created? Not a company, not a brand, but a system that drained the soul out of people. He looked down at the bag in his hands. Just a simple paper bag, nothing special. But he had no idea. It was about to reveal a truth that would change his life forever. Julian didn't open the food bag in the car. He brought it back to his hotel, a luxury suite at the Four Seasons, where he had once signed multi-million-dollar deals. The room was quiet, spotless, and every piece of furniture was exquisitely crafted. On the marble table sat an unfinished bottle of expensive wine from the night before. He placed the humble paper bag on the table, a bag meant to carry a $25 burger, but tonight it felt out of place, like it belonged to another world. He opened it. The burger was carefully wrapped up to Aura's standards. But as he lifted it, his hand brushed against something strange beneath the lining. A worn-out Ziploc bag. Julian froze. He pulled it out, hands trembling slightly. Inside were things that didn't belong in a luxury restaurant, a worn Polaroid photo. In it, a young boy lay in a hospital bed, head tilted, offering a faint smile. Next to him, IV tubes, a heart monitor, and an adult hand gently holding his. Julian stared, breath caught in his chest. That face, it stole the air from his lungs. Crumpled bills, ones and fives, worn and creased. He counted. $37, not 40, not 50, exactly 37 scraped together down to the last dollar. A pawn shop receipt. Item: white gold wedding ring, $200. Julian's heart clenched. On the back of the receipt, a smeared, shaky, handwritten line for Sam. Keep going. Julian collapsed into the chair, speechless. He clutched the Ziploc bag as if it might vanish. That name, Sam, detonated in his mind like a bomb. He looked at the photo. That smile, those eyes. How could they look so familiar? His heart pounded. His breathing was ragged. In his head, the sound returned. Beep, beep, beep. Then silence. Julian shot to his feet, paced a few steps, then slammed his fist into the glass wall. Not a crack. Only his bleeding knuckles. He dropped his head onto the table. After all these years of holding himself together, he cried. Not for anyone else, but because he saw himself again 15 years ago, sitting by his son's hospital bed, broke helpless, out of hope. This bag wasn't a mistake. It was a cry for help, a living record of desperate sacrifice. And the cruelest part, it had happened inside the very company he had built. Julian didn't sleep. He sat in the hotel room all night, the Ziploc bag lying before him like a silent accusation. Every item inside cut deeper. The photo, the crumpled bills, the pawn shop receipt, the words, for Sam. By dawn, the grief inside him had hardened into a cold fire. No more tears, no more hesitation, only one clear resolve to confront the truth. He put on the same delivery driver uniform, frayed jacket, dusty old jeans. No shave, no combing his hair, no mask, no hiding. Julian stormed into the Aura Burger store on Michigan Avenue like a hurricane. No one recognized him at first, but within seconds, the whole place fell silent. The first to realize, the shift manager, jaw-dropping. Then came the others. A customer gasped, "Holy crap, that's Julian Croft." Someone pulled out a phone to record. Employees stepped back. Customers whispered. A few just stared eyes wide at the billionaire CEO standing in front of them like a homeless man. Julian didn't care. He marched straight to the counter, his gaze sharp as a blade. Leo Vance, Izzy Garcia. Office, now. His voice echoed through the space. He didn't shout, didn't explain, just commanded. Leo and Izzy froze, then exchanged a confused glance. They had no idea what was happening, but their legs moved anyway. Inside the conference room, Marcus Thorne was already waiting, his face tight with crisis management stress. But when he saw Julian in dirty clothes, he didn't hide the smug look. "I knew it," Mr. Croft, Thorne said. "I've had suspicions about Leo for a while now. Weak discipline." "I'll handle this, don't." Julian cut him off. He stepped to the table and placed the Ziploc bag onto the glass surface. Said nothing. A beat later, he emptied it. The photo, the cash, the receipt, scattered across the table. The room froze. Julian leaned forward, both hands on the glass. His eyes locked on Leo. His voice was low, sharp as steel. "Explain." No one in the room dared to breathe. Julian's eyes were still locked on Leo, while the artifacts of sacrifice lay scattered across the table like irrefutable evidence. Leo opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His throat clenched shut. Before he could speak, Izzy stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her eyes held steady. "It's for Leo's son. His name is Sam," she said. "He has a congenital heart condition. The insurance company refused to cover the surgery. We tried to raise money, but it wasn't enough, so I slipped some cash into the delivery bags whenever I could." Marcus Thorne scoffed a bitter, mocking laugh. How touching, he sneered, then turned to Julian, triumphant. "But this is a serious policy violation. Not only panhandling during company hours, but also using our platform for personal purposes. The policy is clear. I recommend immediate termination." "Shut up!" Julian's shout cracked like thunder. No one had ever heard him yell like that. The entire room froze. Even Thorne stood paralyzed, mouth open, but utterly speechless. Julian turned, fists clenched, eyes burning with fury and buried pain. But this time, his voice dropped, low, heavy as stone. "My son's name was Sam too." He walked slowly toward Thorne, each word hitting like a hammer. "He died because insurance wouldn't cover his treatment. He was only 8 years old. And I sat beside his bed, holding his hand when his heart stopped. While people like you sat in air-conditioned offices talking about cost optimization." Thorne took a step back. I didn't know." "You're right. You didn't. And you never will. Not as long as you see people as numbers." Julian turned to the 2 security guards waiting quietly by the door. "Escort Mr. Thorne out of this building. Pack up his belongings and send them to whatever hellhole he's crawling into. Effective immediately, he's permanently banned from all Aura Burger properties." Thorne tried to protest, but the words died in his throat as the guards stepped in. They weren't rough, but they weren't gentle either. Within minutes, he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him. No one was sorry to see him go. The room fell silent. Julian stood with his back to everyone. He exhaled, his shoulders sagging. For a moment, the most powerful man in the company looked 10 years older. He turned to face Leo and Izzy. The steel in his eyes was gone. Now there was only a father who had once lost a child, and who now saw himself in someone else's fight. "I forgot why I started. I built a golden cage and called it success." Leo couldn't speak. Neither could Izzy. They just stood there, trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Julian leaned down and gently picked up each item from the table, carefully, reverently, as if handling something sacred. "We're going to fix this," he said, "starting tonight." The conference room remained silent after Thorne was taken away. Julian still stood there, no longer fierce. He slowly sat down, his eyes sunken from sleeplessness and lingering grief. Izzy and Leo stayed frozen, confused, and afraid. They didn't know what would happen next, but Julian had already decided. And this time, he didn't speak as a CEO. He spoke as a father, a man who had lost everything because of a system he had unknowingly helped create. "This shouldn't happen here," he said quietly. "No one in my company should have to pawn their wedding ring to save their child." He took out his phone. It was a high-end device, gold-trimmed, flawless. He dialed a single number, set it on the table, and turned on the speaker. "Mayo Clinic switchboard. I need to speak with Dr. Evans." A receptionist answered. "May I have your name? Please, Julian Croft." A pause, then hesitantly, "Oh, of course. Please hold." A moment later, a man's voice came through, clear, surprised. "Julian, my God, how many years has it been? You're still alive." "Not just alive," Julian said. "I need you, right now. I have a patient for you. His name is Sam, a little boy. Congenital heart defect. I want you to do the surgery." Silence on the other end. Julian continued, his voice calm but ice-edged. "Get a medevac jet. Fly from Mayo to Chicago. Take off within 90 minutes. I'll cover everything. All costs, personally. No insurance, no company involvement. I don't care what's on your schedule. Just do it." "All right," Dr. Evans replied. "I'll do it." Julian ended the call. The room was still silent. Leo looked petrified. His mouth opened, but no words came. "Tonight, your son will have his surgery," Julian said. His eyes held something that had long been missing: faith. "And tomorrow morning, I'm launching the Sam Shield Fund, starting with $20 million, so that every employee at Aura Burger knows they're not alone. No one will ever have to sell their wedding ring to save their child again. Not under my watch." Izzy covered her mouth, tears flooding her eyes. Leo bowed his head, shoulders trembling. Julian stood and turned to face the window. The city was still loud, still lit, but this time it didn't feel cold. "The promise I made to my son. I lost sight of it," he said softly. "Now I'm going to keep it. Not just for one Sam, but for both." The news spread like wildfire. Within 48 hours of that fateful meeting, major headlines exploded across media outlets. Aura Burger CEO fires VP over heartless policy, donates $20 million to save employee's son Sam's shield. Julian Croft's new fund transforms company culture from within. The Michigan Avenue store, once a symbol of cold sophistication, began to change by the day. The glass walls were cleaned, but this time they no longer reflected distance. In one corner, Polaroid photos of employees and their families were pinned up. A whiteboard stood nearby with one simple question: "What do you need help with today?" Below it, handwritten notes: "Need someone to cover night shift childcare. Can anyone trade shifts Sam's fund? Helped buy meds for my mum." The tension had vanished. Employees smiled more, talked more, and customers noticed. They didn't just come for the burgers anymore, they came for the story. Izzy, once a service floor staffer, was now officially Regional Operations Director. She moved between stores, like a true leader, listening, supporting, and empowering. She didn't rely on spreadsheets. She relied on her ears and heart. Leo, after his son's successful surgery, declined the offer to manage a restaurant. He said simply, "I want to be where I can help people who were where I was." He became executive director of the Sam's Shield Fund, working hands-on, with employees facing hardship, from medical bills and housing to mental health support. Each person who received help got a small silver pin, a shield engraved with the name Sam. Anyone wearing it knew they were not alone. At a press conference, a journalist asked Julian, "What do you think truly changed Aura Burger?" Julian smiled and answered, "We stopped talking about customer experience and started caring about the human experience." The quote went viral not because it was polished, but because it was real. Revenue soared, but no one inside the company led with numbers. They spoke of trust, of pride in being part of something that mattered. The slogan, "Taste the Integrity," was no longer just marketing. It was a promise fulfilled, a shield forged from pain, sacrifice, and courage. 1 year later, the sky over Chicago was clear with soft winds and warm sun, a rare gift in a city usually wrapped in damp gray. At Wrigley Field, thousands roared from the stands as a small boy sprinted toward home plate, sliding across the line to score. He stood up, beaming, arms raised in triumph. The crowd erupted, but his eyes searched only one spot, the third row left side, where two men sat side by side. Leo wore a simple t-shirt, waving proudly. Beside him was Julian Croft, no suit, no tie. Just a Cubs hoodie and a low-slung baseball cap. His eyes were misty, but his smile was unmistakable. "He's really good," Julian said, voice tinged with joy and awe. Leo nodded. "The doctors say he'll live a normal life now. No more danger." They sat there for a while, saying nothing, just watching the boy laugh and run with his teammates waving back. Sam, Leo's son, hadn't just survived. He was truly alive. Leo turned and gently patted Julian's shoulder. "You know, he keeps asking about Dad's best friend. I told him about you, about another Sam, one who didn't make it, about a guardian angel." Julian said nothing. A tear slid down his cheek, not out of sorrow, but peace. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, he wasn't haunted by the past. He was witnessing a promise fulfilled in a way he had never imagined. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a financial alert. Aura burger stock was up 8% after a national segment aired about Sam's shield. Julian glanced at the screen for a second. Then he turned it off, slipped it back in his pocket. He didn't care. His legacy wasn't in the stock charts anymore. It wasn't in financial reports or boardroom accolades. It was out there on the field, laughing, shouting, living every moment to the fullest. When the final whistle blew, Sam ran toward the stands, arms wide, face glowing with happiness. Leo knelt to catch him in a hug. Julian stood beside them, resting a hand on Leo's shoulder, saying nothing. He didn't need to, and in that moment, the three of them, standing together at the edge of a quiet American ballpark, surrounded by laughter and cheers for a boy named Sam. Julian knew the circle had closed. The promise had been kept, not just for one child, but for anyone who needed a shield and a second chance. Some stories leave you speechless, not because of the tragedy, but because of the way people rise from it. Julian Croft had everything most people dream of: wealth, power, an empire bearing his name. But in the end, it wasn't profit that changed him. It was a paper bag, a photograph, a few crumpled bills, a shaky handwritten note. For Sam, keep going. Sometimes the smallest things awaken the biggest truths inside us: our conscience, our sense of responsibility, and the promises we once forgot. This isn't just a story about a CEO or a father. It's a reminder that behind every face we see each day, there may be a battle we can't see. And sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to listen for an entire system to change. When I wrote this story, I wasn't just thinking about Julian or Leo. I was thinking about everyone who's ever had to choose between their job and their family, between rent and a loved one's life. And I asked myself, if I were Julian, would I have the courage to act? If I were Leo, would I still have the faith to hope? If you've watched this far, maybe you felt something too. And if this story made you pause even for a moment to think about what truly matters in life, then Toch's story has done its job. If you love stories like this, stories that touch your heart, spark your faith, and remind you that goodness still exists, please hit the subscribe button. Tap the bell so you don't miss the next video. Every subscriber is a small voice saying, "Keep telling stories that matter." Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.